So does anybody else love to garden until the weeds start to grow? That's kind of where I'm at today. Out of control. Oh my goodness. All this rain's been great for the plants and for the weeds. So the only option I really have now is to go out and use my hands and a shovel and get going on it. So let's get started. All right, so I've recruited some help. Thank you, Eli.
Welcome.
Let's get busy.
Alrighty.
So when it's really hot outside, water just doesn't do it sometimes. And so I'm going to show you real quick what I make occasionally when I'm working outside and I just need something a bit more than water to drink that's really refreshing and cooling. So I have here some green tea packets, a lemon, and my trusty, well, I call it my sippy cup. I take this with me everywhere. We love Yetis. So durable, especially when we're working outside. These things will last forever, and we have a collection of Yetis for us and for our children. So my cup, and I always get Sonic ice. Every Friday, either Joe or I will go to the Sonic here in town. They have half price bags of ice on Fridays, and so this is what we keep, is the nice pellet style ice. It's awesome. And I also have a peppermint plant growing in my kitchen at all times, and I like to put that in it too. So here's what I do. So back outside we go. So now that you've seen the mess that a garden can be and can become, there's some things that I want to share with you that we have learned with our gardens over the last 3 years. So I'm going to start with the first year. The first year we planted a garden that was just way too big. I was very confident, I guess, overly confident, and just very excited to have a garden and just to have the space to grow just as much as I possibly could. I was just very overeager and got carried away. And in that first year, we planted way too many things. So I planted all sorts of varieties of fruits and vegetables with the hopes that if I grew them, then we would eat them. Now, these weren't things that we were eating on a consistent basis and not things that I really had enjoyed eating before, but I really just thought if I grew them, we would eat them. And that wasn't the case. And so our garden was way too large, had way too many different things in it that I didn't even really feel like we would eat or use. The second thing that we did in the first year was just the size in general was way too big. And so just the amount of space that I had to till and weed and maintain was overwhelming. Now, my husband helps and my children help, but only for short amounts of time. The garden really does rest mostly on me to maintain and take care of. And so one person trying to maintain the size of garden that we were trying to grow just was not manageable for me. Sorry, I've got a kitty cat here that wants to join. You want to say hi, Mama Kitty? Here. Say hi. Say hi, everyone. If I sit down somewhere, she typically wants to join me and crawl up in my lap. All right, I'm gonna have to go now. I've got a video to make, okay? All right, go ahead. All right, so that was the first year. Now, the second year, we decided, well, last year it was just way too big. We grew too many things, so I need to scale it way down, make it smaller, grow only a few things that we know we're going to use. But when I did that, I made it really, really small, and I tried to pack too many things in one space. And I did not leave enough room between my rows to run the tiller. It was hard to weed. It was hard to walk around the garden even to get around. Once those plants grew to full size, it was just way overwhelming. And so I didn't leave enough space. I tried to scale it back, maybe in size too small, and still tried to grow a lot of things in a tight space, and it just didn't work. Do you mind, Freddie? We've got a ball baby cow that thinks every time I come outside, he needs to be fed. Sorry about that. Farm life. Okay, another mistake that we made last year, which is our second year, was that we didn't stay ahead of the pests. So I let the pests show up, the insects show up on the plants before I treated them. And it's just not a good idea because once you see one, there's many. And so they ended up getting a lot of our tomatoes and our peppers, and they just kind of took over and ate everything. And I was working from behind trying to get rid of them, trying to treat the plants when there was already substantial damage done. And so we just didn't stay on top of the pests, and we ended up losing our garden, one, to not being able to be weeded properly, and also to the pests taking over. And so that was a big mistake last year that we made. We ended up losing a lot of our hard work because of it. So for this year, we really tried to incorporate a lot of the things that we've learned in our garden, and we've learned some more lessons this year. We're learning every year about a proper way of doing a garden and making it manageable and simple. And so I wanted to share with you the 4 lessons that we've learned that you really shouldn't start a garden without this advice. If you're starting a garden or you're thinking about it or even just planning for the next year, listen to this advice and try to implement it in what you're doing. So the first one is to scale your garden for simplicity. Okay, so when I say that, I mean only plant the things that you currently eat, that your family currently enjoys, that you know you're going to use. Don't plant things thinking that if you plant them, you will eat them. That's not always the case. And in our situation, it wasn't the case at all. I planted a lot of things that we didn't eat, and so it really just wasn't worth all the work, wasn't worth the money, wasn't worth the investment. So scale it to the size that meets your needs for the size of family that you have, and only plant the things that you really enjoy eating, because then you will enjoy growing them as well. So for number 2, the second lesson that we've learned is leave lots of space in between your rows. When you are planting your rows, you look visually at the row where the seeds or the little small plants are, and you think, oh, that is plenty of room in between my rows. You can have 20 inches or so, and it looks like a lot of space, but that's because the plants haven't grown yet. You see behind me how much a green bean bush will grow. And when you don't leave enough space, your rows don't have enough room to run a tiller down the middle. And that is so important, because if you can leave space in your garden to run your tiller between your rows, it really cuts down on your weeding time. If you don't want to have to take a hoe by hand to all of your rows and take days and days to weed your garden, I really, really encourage you to leave way more room than you think necessary between your rows. I'm talking at least 3 feet to 4 feet between your rows so that you can make 1 or 2 passes between your rows. It'll also make it easier for you to move around your garden, to not only weed and till, but to pick and to prune. You're not going to be stepping on other plants, and your children can help easily in the garden when there's plenty of space between the rows. And you've probably seen we have animals in and out of our garden, and when there's plenty of space between the rows, they're not stomping all over my plants. They can freely walk through the rows, and I don't have to freak out anytime the dogs get in the garden, or the cats or the chickens. Okay, and number 3, the third lesson that we learned with our gardens is plant with July in mind. Now, right now, as we speak, it is hot out here. It is probably 90 degrees, but the humidity is so high right now that it feels way hotter than that right now. And this is not the time that you want to be outside taking care of your garden. This is the time that you want things well established. This is the time that you want all of your good practices and you want all of your good advice in place, because you're not going to want to spend a lot of time outside managing and maintaining your garden. And so remember that when you plant your garden, how big do you want it? What's manageable? What's going to be worth getting out in the heat to take care of? When you want to do more fun things in the summer, how long are you going to want to leave it for? Are you going to want to go away for a weekend and not worry about your garden? All of those things you need to consider before you plant your garden. Remember July. Remember and think about July, how the grass and the weeds overtake so quickly, especially if you get any rain. The grass and the weeds are just going to be prolific in your garden. And so just remember that when you scale it, when you design it, and whatever you plant, just make sure that you are prepared for July. Number 4, the last one I'm going to share is pretty crucial, and that is stay ahead of the pests. So I will share with you what we use for pests in our garden that works as kind of a broad spectrum coverage for our plants. Now, we do not do organic gardening. We do use pesticide. We wash our fruits and vegetables very well. We try to use as minimal amount of the pesticide as possible. And we also use a granule. Now, this granule that we use does not sit on the plant itself. We put it on the ground around the plants. And so when we put it around the bottom, it's not sitting on the fruit. Whereas if you use a powder or a spray, you are spraying the fruit directly, and then that leaves those residues on the fruit. So this is our way of doing it, and if we will just treat this 2 or 3 times in a season, it will keep the pests at bay, and we don't have to worry about treating each individual plant for a different type of pest, which the first 2 years trying to do organic gardening, you had to do certain things for certain pests. And that's wonderful if a garden is your thing and it's the only thing you're doing and you want to invest a lot of time in organic gardening. I think that's wonderful. But we have too many things going on out here. And we have children, and we have homeschool. My husband works full time, and so the garden isn't number 1 on the list. It's definitely toward the top of the list, but it's not number 1. And so we just need something that we can manage, we can maintain, and it just makes it easy and simple. I still will always have a tendency to overdo it, to push a little too hard, to grow a little too much, and it really becomes exhausting and it becomes something that is no longer simple. You have to simplify everything, every aspect. You have to think simply. And if you can do that, you will reap such benefits and you won't feel as stressed and as maxed out as you do trying to do too much. And so those are the 4 things that we've learned. I hope that it helps you. I hope it just gives you something to think about as you plant your garden and as you maintain it. I hope that you feel encouraged and maybe inspired to go outside and plant something. There is nothing like growing your own food and feeling just a bit more self-reliant. Words can't describe the pride that we feel when we come out and we harvest our food and then we take it in and we prepare it and we sit around our table at night and just enjoy the fruits of our labor. And I want the same for you guys. So if you have any questions about anything that we've learned or that we've done out here, we would love nothing more than to help you along on your journey too. We don't know everything, but we would love to come alongside you and help you on your journey to simplify your life and simplify your homestead. So with that, I say thank you so much for joining me today. And if there's ever anything that we can do to help you or to encourage you, reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. And as always, if you could like this video and subscribe so that you can follow along, we would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We love you guys. Bye.